Hello, everybody, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Tech Talk Tuesday, automating your... Hello, everybody. Welcome to MSP Unplugged's Tech Talk Tuesday, automating your PSA. I'm your host, Rick Smith. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help you run and grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Before we get started, you don't have to do the due diligence and welcome in my co-host, the one, the only, the man who really needs no introduction, the world famous Mr. Paco Lebron. How are you today,
I don't
sir?
know. I don't know about world famous, but hopefully I don't get to become infamous in these fun times. But anyway, I am doing well, my friend. I am doing better than I deserve. How are you doing this fine? What we will call a faux Tuesday.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Surviving. Just ready for the rest of the week and ready to get it going and grow some business. So before we get started, Paco has a little common announcement to make, and that is about, well, not announcement, but our public service announcement. Let's put it that way.
Oh, a PSA, but not the PSA we're talking about today.
Not the PSA we're talking about today.
But I think what you're referring to is this little event we're throwing called TechCon Unplugged.
That indeed
We
is
are
what
in
I'm
our
talking about.
We are in our fourth year, folks, and we will be in Woodbridge, New Jersey, September 7th through the 10th at the Delta Hotels Woodbridge. Join us for an evening mixer as we kick off 2.5 days of content. And that's right. You heard here, folks, for those that have attended in the past, 2.5 days of content to help better your business, to save money, save time, and improve your services. This show is for any sized IT solution provider, and we really mean that. So that means whether you are an emerging MSP or IT solutions provider, or you're a veteran in the space, this is the place for you. Tickets are on sale now. Early bird pricing of $199. You can head over to TechConUnplugged.com and get your tickets today. We will be updating that website soon. Just finalizing some few things here and there. Just spoke with Matt yesterday, and we will have this website revised, updated with some great new and returning sponsors. And there's going to be a lot of great content that we have coming in. So head over to TechConUnplugged.com before it is too late for early bird pricing. $199, TechConUnplugged.com. Back to you, Rick.
All right. Looking forward to it. So again, if you haven't got your tickets yet, go get them. Because this will be, not only because it's in New Jersey, but because we're learning and growing, this will be the best TechCon ever. So you don't want to miss it. But anyway, Paco, back to today's topic, and that is PSA automation and how we as MSPs can use the automation of our PSA to help us with our business. And again, we use the same set of words, but it's true. Whether you're a one-person shop or you're a shop with a lot of people, automation helps. It can always, help you to simplify things, to make sure things are done the same way. But, also one of the great things about it is you don't have to do as much, right? If you can get the automation correctly, get it done correctly, it can help run the business, save some steps and some things you're going to do. Now, Paco here is, we both use Synchro. Paco is, I consider him my resident Synchro expert. So whenever I have an issue with Synchro and I'm still working on my automation, I call him. Sometime to his fiance chagrin, I'm calling him late in the evening or early in the morning because I got questions. And, we just open up the conversation. I have a question for him, and 95% of the time he has an answer, or this is the way I do it, or this is the way he does it. So, again, automation applies to every, any PSA tool you're using. Since we both happen to use Synchro, that is where our quote unquote, Paco's quote unquote expertise lies, and my quote unquote understanding lies. So, Paco, let's start with you. When you are thinking about, or when you started the process of automating, what was the most important steps for you? What did you want to see or get, from your automation? He made the rookie mistake.
See what I was doing a bunch of stuff here and I was ready for you and I goofed up. Ain't that something? First time for everything. And if y'all listening to it, I was on mute. I apologize for that. Anyway, there's no editing of this show, so we're going to continue to keep moving. But what I was going to say is, it's a little bit of a layered approach, but I want to kind of take a step back for those that are listening for the first time, getting into the industry, getting into the thing, into kind of what this whole situation is known as managed services or IT solution providing is what the heck is a PSA, right? And so obviously we joked around earlier about public service announcement, but what is a PSA? Well, because we mentioned Synchro earlier, I'm just pulling up a little article that they have here, and I think they really described PSA software really well. A lot of people think PSAs are CRMs, which quasi sometimes that's true depending on what's been built out in there. Now there are a lot of arguments that CRMs are not the same as PSAs. However, there are a lot of people out there, like I think Carrie Richardson over at Richardson and Richardson Consulting. She actually had put out a video probably a couple years ago on how to really get the most information and items inside of your PSA to track on and things of that nature. But simply put, what's I agree with and has Secret wrote in their blog is, what is a PSA software? A PSA software is an excellent option for project management, business intelligence, time tracking, for billing, and other tools to kind of keep everything all inside of each other, right? It helps, making sure that the managed services and client engagements are kind of intact throughout the life cycle of the journey of that client. So with that being said, that's really what a PSA is. It's really a way to help not only store information for you to review, take advantage of, and calculate, but it also is an ability to not only have that information stored, but also automate a lot of the stuff that you need for your business. Now, I'm going to quote someone else as well. There is a podcast called PSA Impact, Rayanne Buccianico and Chris Tim, where they talk about how when you approach a PSA, the first assumption is that when you go into a PSA, the thought is you got to use it for ticketing. Like that's the first thing that you should go, that a lot of managed service providers will adopt that. And she actually states that's actually the wrong direction of how to go into it first. You really want to build obviously the layer and the actual automations first before you kind of dive in and start logging tickets. And we'll go into a little bit about this later on. But to answer your question specifically, Rick, is, what do I think about automation and what in my brain, as far as, well, if I have a PSA, what do I want the most out of? And that's being able to automate my billing, being able to track the communications for our clients, and also helping manage the contracts and the reporting so that we have tangible results that we can give our clients, but also report internally as well. We talked a little bit about this in a couple episodes called the Unicorn Project, where we kind of redid our entire layout of our systems. But we'll go into a little bit more in there. But that's for me what I look into as far as for a PSA. And specifically, this is what I'm doing inside of Synchro right now. And you're on mute as well, my friends. So now we have a twofer for this episode. We got to remember the numbers of these episodes so we can start saying, hey, remember episode so-and-so?
I
This
think
is
we'll
where the
start.
goofballs ended up muting themselves.
We'll label them and do it. But I think one of your first point is excellent, is that, and a lot of times we look at PSA as a ticketing instrument. Now it does. And
Rick
my
is
mic
caught for
muted
loss of
again.
words. It's okay.
But but it does do that. And the first thing we always think about is, hey, let me get a client in and build a ticket. Let me, put a client and put in a ticket. And I do agree that it is much more than that. And one of the things I think is fundamental that I've learned as time has gone on, and this is really through conversations with you and things that you've recommended to me to read or check out, is the most important thing I think from the PSA is actually the reporting portion of it. And I say that for this reason. You always hear me say, if you don't know where you are, or you don't know where you come from, you can't tell where you're going, right? And reporting plays a major role in that. And we always use well, I'll speak for myself. When I think of reporting and knowing where I'm at, knowing where I'm going, we always tend to think of numbers and we think of revenue or we think of sales, right? I did 500,000 this year. I want to do 750 next year. What do I need to do to change that? But there are so many there. When you ask that question, what do I need to do to change that? The things you need to do to change that are in those metrics that you get from the reporting of your PSA, right? So let's just now we'll go back to ticketing, but if your ticketing is inefficient or your ticket response is inefficient, there's a way you can, increase your revenue, right? You save some time,
Right.
you figure out where your issues are. If you are not, you know, realizing that you're overcharging, undercharging, whatever those things are, that's all in the reporting as well. And you can, there's revenue to be gained there. And so I think, there's hundreds of examples, but one of the things I'm realizing the more I start delving into the reporting is I'm finding a lot of my answers are there in the reporting portion of this. That's not to say that it is the most important, but I think it is one of the most important is getting the reporting out. And I'll leave with this. You get out what you put in, right? So you can't get good reporting if you're putting in bad information. So having a strategy, having a process for how you're getting information into your PSA, how you're using it is going to feed that data that you need to help you grow to the next level. And this is something I think that a lot of us, myself included, don't take into account as we're using our tool, as we're using our PSA tool. We're not using it efficiently as the tool it could be to help us with the growth.
Yeah. But don't go too far because you're gonna leave. You said you were leaving, but I think the big piece on that is, you have to figure out how you want to go into it on a modular basis. You can't go into this and try and attack everything and want to automate, because then you just have over analysis paralysis. And then the other thing you mentioned is that a saying that my old supervisor used to say when I was in corporate America was garbage in, garbage out. So you want to make sure you take this slow, figure it out, but also fail fast, right? So it's a little bit of a balance in there where, it's okay to mess up and it's okay to do whatever. Like I said, so I came from repair shopper over to synchro for my PSA. I've been operating like it was a one-man band. And then I ended up having employees and then trying to figure out where all the mines are on the field. There's another phrase I like to use, but it's probably not for the best for here. But it helps try and figure that out. So what we've decided to figure out from, again, reading that book, is what we did is we redid the entire layout of our entire PSA system. Again, go back to the Unicorn Project episode so you can hear more about that. But I want to dive into something that, what we talk about here all the time. How are we saving money, saving time, and improving services? And I think the first one that we can go ahead.
I'm sorry, just want to interrupt something because I think it's a good point before you continue. Is you've been doing this for a while, right? You've been an MSP, excuse me, for a few years now, but and you've been successful at it. Let's not let's not cut the corners here. But you've come to this point this year that some changes need to be made.
Sure.
To improve your process. And I think the only reason I stopped you there is because I think that's something we should emphasize. It is never too late. You're never too deep in to make some course corrections if you feel like those are going to get you to a better place. Once you've learned where you are and how you can improve your process. So I just wanted to emphasize that before you went on, because I think that's extremely important.
No, yeah, and that's all experience, right? Like it's a lot of experience, it's a lot of pain, it's a lot of learning lessons of trying to figure it out, right? So, it's definitely interesting to kind of look back, and then and the main reason why, I do this and you do this is to make sure that we contribute those so that they don't make the same mistakes that we did, right? And they don't have to go through that pain. I think the pain is necessary, but if you can try and make it a sting versus flat out hitting brick wall, it's going to be a better opportunity for you. Now, and I want to talk into the phrase of automated billing. Your PSA should be doing automated billing. Now, if you're not doing automated billing, that's a different story. But if your PSA is not doing automated billing, you're doing yourself a disservice. So, and I understand that there's this whole concept of like, well, they're eating out fees from your processors if you automate this thing, blah, 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 blah. And what I mean by the credit card processor or the ACH processor. But here's how I look at it. Yeah, you go ahead and give a little bit up on your fees, but you got to think about this. Would you really want a personal pan pizza and get the whole thing? Or do you want half a football size pizza? I personally would like the half size football pizza because it's more pizza in my brain. But people just they are, what's the saying? And you probably will know this more than I would, Rick. Is like people are trying to look for nickels and giving up dollars or something like that. I can't remember.
Searching for dimes and searching for dimes by paying dollars. I think I've the way I've
something
heard.
like that. Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people are hung up on that type of stuff and not realizing the hidden costs behind that. So in automated billing, in that example, for us, how we're using our automated billing is we created our products inside of Synchro. We add those products into their automated invoicing, which now I can recur an invoice on a specific date. It'll go out to the client and it gives them the choice to pay it. But what we do is we actually add all of their information inside of our system that gets stored in our processor, and then it'll automate that billing as well. So not only does Synchro have a customer portal that you can log into, which I know a lot of systems don't have that, they can make the payment right then and there. You can automate the payment inside of their system, and you can go ahead and be as flexible as you want on the things to be added. You could do one-time charges, you could do things like that. You can do multiple invoices if you prefer to. You can add all your ticket time charges that you have as well. These are all terms that we're going to dive into a little bit more into, because me and Rick do things differently as far as on our products and services that I want to go into on trying to calculate that. But really, that's the biggest piece of trying to automate billing is how do you make it for consistent cash flow that is predictable. Now, I'm going to go into an example really quick, but I want to dump it onto Rick. Is when you think of automated billing, what does that mean to you?
Well, the first thing is I'm just going to say it the way we do it. I guess is the best way. Is you don't have to touch it. It's a certain date. The billing is done. It's already, again, with contracts, it's already predetermined what that cost is. That bill is automatically generated at a certain date. We have either a credit card or ACH on file. The client gets the email knowing that here's the bill. This is the date it's going to be credited from your account. And that's all done. So essentially for me, automated billing is putting it in one time, waiting for the second to see all the money deposited to my account. That's automated billing for me.
Yeah, no, and that's 100% true. I mean, I think that's the matter of trying to figure out how to create predictable and consistent cash flow. Now, I bring this up because I literally had this conversation with a friend of mine. And so his concern was, okay, right now I have a fluctuation of billing. I bill some clients every 6 months. I have billing on clients for every year. I have on demand. There's some that are monthly. But his problem was there was always a period of time or period of times that he couldn't make it to the end of the month. And he would basically, like, for example, man, I got to come up with $300 for mortgage, or I got to go ahead and come up with $200 for, this bill. And I was like that too, way back when, trying to figure out what it was because my billing was inconsistent. So my methodology had been, all right, you got to change everything monthly. And that was one of the changes that I did when I mentioned that I said I was struggling to the end of 2019 or 2018. I think it was end of 2018. And that was one of the changes I did. I made all of my billing monthly that everyone had to pay me for consistent and predictable cash flow. So for him, out of all of them, he's like, man, but I don't want to do that because then I give up getting $600 one month and then 1,001 and then the other. I was like, because I've already kind of like put those holes where I said I said some words to him that are not, because of our rapport. Everyone does business different, and we're a big proponent of that. So I said, okay, let's do an exercise. So we literally listed all his clients in a spreadsheet. We listed how long that they did it. We put them all in 12 months, and we divided them up by monthly. And he's getting at least now, when we did it, everything, he's getting about $2,000 predictably a month, which for some is not a lot, but for those that are solo or trying to figure this out and you're starting on your journey, that's a lot of money for being inconsistent. And so when he saw that number, because again, seeing is believing, and he said, well, damn. He said, well, that's great. He goes, but no one's going to write me a check every month for like $15 or $16 for a software or whatever. I said, well, that's the beautiful part about automated billing, my friend. This is why you go ahead and have them give their credit card information and put them in the portal. This is why you have them put the information in the ACH. These are the things that you want to do so that you don't think about it. And more importantly, waste time to get the damn check or the check to come to you in the mail or trying to figure it out. Like, you should never, and we kind of learned this during the shelter in place during the past 2 years, 3 years actually, is, you have to take an opportunity to learn that you have to make it as you don't have to put your hands on everything at all times. And cash flow, if you could just have it happen and you focus on the other things, are going to be important for you, because you need to focus on the money. But if the money is just being taken in for you, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? So that's my thing about automated billing. Now, Rick, for you, so you and I both do all inclusive in a sense, for billing. For us, we charge per user. And so we do per user. We have 2 plans, so it's like between one and the other. Now, John, who is our new John Dubinsky, for everyone who knows on the show, is our new director of IT operations, has been pushing me very hard to do a PC cost on it as well, because we will sometimes have like manufacturing facilities, automotive facilities, where there'll be 5 office staff, but there's 15 computers. And so there's money being lost on what you're monitoring and things of that nature. So I partly agree with him, but also at the same time, that is money I'm leaving on the table, but I'm working on some strategies on some of those things. Whereas for you, Rick, I know you do things a little bit differently that actually allow for you to think about that as you move forward, as you're planning what to charge. I'll let you go into a little bit about like how you build your process per se.
I look at it as anything I have to touch that has to be a bill attached, right? There's a cost. If I have to put a tool on it that I pay for, then that has to be charged for, right? So we basically do it on 3 categories, 4 things. Hardware, which is, workstations. The second part of hardware is servers. So if we have any in-house or managed servers, those all count, towards we just call it the computer cost, right? There's a PC charge for that. Different costs the reason we break it up is because there's different costs for server management than there is desktop or laptop or MDM management, anything like that. Second is per people, because you think about it again, back to the same facility. I have the same situation. I have a lot of clients in the medical industry, and they'll have more PCs than they have users. The doctor will bounce from, exam room to exam room. There's a PC in each room that we are managing software on. So there's a cost for that. Then, as a user, the doctor will log in, whatever. So, there's a separate cost. So usually more PCs than users. Same thing you talk about. Usually 1 or 2 servers, whether they are on site or in the cloud. Excuse me. And then, so that takes care of that. The second part of that is the user, again, as I say. So we charge a user fee, and that's really for all the other things we have to manage regarding the user. That includes training. That includes Office 365 costs. That includes, anything else having to do with the user. I think that what I'm forgetting is mail protection, things along that nature. And there's a few other things that go with that. And then the last thing is we charge a facilities fee or a location fee. And that is to manage all the other stuff that goes with it. The server room, the monitoring of the network, all of those other things. So that is how we do it. I'm kind of a long, convoluted answer, but that is how we do it. So anything that we have to service, we have to charge for. And that's the way we look at it.
Right. And so also, I think one thing that you also do is, in order to calculate all this, it's obviously very complicated, but you've actually built a system where you've developed a database, as you will, in Excel, which we actually had transferred over to an Excel database by a good friend, Jerry Bransfield.
Yeah. Shout out to Jerry for that.
To make that a little bit more automated for you to help calculate that and then transpire that into your invoicing for recurring invoices. With that database, obviously you're plugging in all of this information and you put it on your cost. How much has that saved you time? And then how do you translate that into your invoicing?
Well, it saves a ton of time because what we do is we know what we pay each vendor for whatever vendors either charge you, most of the time it's per device, right? Or per user, however that charges, right? So we know what those charges are. We know when it comes to the facilities fee, the location fee, what those charges are that's included in all that. So all that goes into the spreadsheet, spits out a cost for us. It tells us what we pay and what we charge. What we charge, we put in our PSA, we put in Synchro in the products category. So if you are a basic user, or the basic computer, or we have two charges for location fees, right? So 1 or 2. So whatever that is, when we're filling out the payment schedule for that client, the recurring bill for that client, we put each one of those, the number for each one of those in those 3 categories, or 4 categories, excuse me. That spits out a number that we roll up into a oh my God, what is the word I'm looking for, Paco? Synchro has the why can't I think of the word? My God. Bundle. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
We put that into a bundle, and that is what the customer sees. So the customer sees one line item.
Yeah.
And that is their bill, right? So under that is the bundle of how many PCs, how many servers, how many locations, and how many users. That's under the bundle, but the customer sees that one line item for the price. And that's how we roll it up. That gets rolled up into our recurring billing. And each month that changes. Now, it is our responsibility. Here's where it gets a little tricky, and you have to stay on top of things. Synchro does have this. We do not use it, but you have to stay vigilant of if customer adds a machine or a new user comes along, so that you are billing correctly for, if you add a new employee, you have to add all of those devices to the cost, right? I mean, all of those additional tools that you have to add for that new user, you have to add that to your cost. So that becomes a new user cost if there's not another PC added. Things along that nature. There are ways to do that within Synchro. We don't utilize that yet, but we just do, our own internal auditing every 60 days, basically, just making sure that we're charging what is required.
Yeah, so we do something similar. So we don't do bundles, obviously, although we would love to. We'll put a show notes of what we mean by bundles and how that works inside the Synchro PSA. But what we do is we do turn on the dynamic contact counter on our system. So more for what Synchro calls dynamic billing. So anytime we add a contact or we remove a contact, it will adjust the billing per month, and it helps kind of going from there. And what we do is we actually monthly ask them, hey, has there been any hirings, and has there been any changes, etc. And then that's communicated down into that process for us, and then we modify it there. But what's even better and cooler that they added was you now have the ability to put a custom field inside of the contact to say active or deactivated. Like if they're offboarded, but let's say, for example, you needed their information because you're billing for like an email address or something of that nature, or a Microsoft license. I forgot the exact scenario, but Andy said it best on the last Ask Me Live Anything. But now you have the ability to tag not only off of the contact, but of the custom field, whether like they're active or not active, and bill off of that. Because our biggest concern was, all right, if a contact gets added by our automation, it adds an additional user inside the billing, and now we're overbilling them. But by this having the active flag, if our automation happens to create a contact and it's a duplicate or it's whatever, it won't trigger because we didn't manually add active to that system for when we added for the onboarding or the offboarding of that system. So that's been pretty cool for us, and how we dynamically add that those users as we for the count.
Let me ask you a question. with that, I know that Synchro, I guess this was recently, Synchro released a automated invoicing. I guess that was part of that. Was that part of the Ask Me Anything thing? The automated invoicing with Synchro. They did it recently. I'm thinking the last couple of days.
Not sure what that feature is.
Okay.
But I know that the automated invoicing.
No, it was a YouTube video. A YouTube, they, part of their.
Well, I know they Asked Me Anything came out on I think it was last week sometime.
Okay.
If that's what you're referring to.
I
But
think
don't
I know
about
at some point they did something with automated billing for Synchro.
There is a video that they just released yesterday.
Oh, yes.
Was
Okay.
titled Automated Billing. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was a clip off of the Ask Me Anything or whatnot. But if you go over to Synchro's YouTube channel, which we'll post that in the show notes as well. And we don't mean to make this a Synchro show, but obviously that's what we use. And so essentially, that will kind of go through on how to automate the billing. And so hopefully for those that either are not on Synchro, you can pull what we're saying and put it into your own PSA. But those that are using Synchro can obviously apply these much more one-to-one as we're discussing them.
Okay. Now, here's my question. Going back to that.
Mm-hmm.
There is the theory we've been playing with. We use two other things outside that Synchro feeds and that feeds Synchro. One of those is Hoodoo, which we use for documentation. The other is Envirosoft, which we use as our customer portal.
Okay.
They both have the ability to pull your Microsoft users. So you can attach basically to their Microsoft portal to pull all the users for every customer. I believe Envirosoft can feed that data back to Synchro. Right. The reason I'm asking that question is that you think an accurate way to then count users? Because Synchro will count desktops for you.
Correct. And it will also count contacts for you as well.
Right.
Inside. So by doing it that way, yes and no. So in the spirit of automation, yes, that will be a great way to add those users into your Synchro system. You can have a third party app like Envirosoft or Hoodoo to push those contacts in. You can also use Zapier and scripting to be able to push those into Synchro. So if you check out Nick Ross over at T-365, he has a video about this. He'll actually be on this Thursday, and as we talk to him about T-365 and what he has going on that channel. So you have the ability to do that as well. The only thing you'll have to essentially worry about per se, right, is if Teams creates a contact when you're creating sites, etc. for it. Now, if you're doing an initial sync, that should be fine because you can get rid of the contacts. If you have an automated sync, that should work as long as you're using a status like active or not active, because then it won't mess with your count inside of the invoicing from there. Because last you need is that, there's sometimes also where, and it's all about process, right? It's all about process. It's all about the documentation that you have in place. Because, for example, if you have a client that says, hey, I'm offboarding this user, but I need access to their information. So we convert it into a shared mailbox and remove the license, it's still showing as active inside of Synchro because you didn't delete the user. So you have to figure out how you put that process in place. So with all automation, you have to make sure you have your checks, obviously, but I do not foresee that being a bad way of importing and staying on top of your users as well, because you would think as you introduce these licenses, you can get that synced. The only time that would probably not be an issue or would be an issue is if you're doing work for a co-managed IT client, and you don't have the ability to gain access to their Microsoft 365 or access to things that you didn't manually put into Hoodoo or Envirosoft to import into Synchro. You're kind of in the same position as well, but not a bad idea for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we're just looking for, like I say, we're searching for ways now to automate that to make it so that, we do that 60-day check, right?
Yeah.
Count devices, count users, make sure they match what you're billing for. The synchro count, I think, is great. It's just that we have to be accurate. I do understand with devices, it's fine because once you add the RMM, once you
Right.
add synchros, or add the RMM to the device, it's going to show up as a device connected to that account. What you have
Right.
to then account for is making sure that you deactivate or uninstall or delete any devices that you take offline, because
Not
then you'll
only
be
that,
over the
but
account.
also not only that, but if you repurpose that device for another hire
Right.
as well, because then you have duplications. So that was a big problem we had inside of ConnectWise Control and inside of Synchro as well, where there were more systems inside of ConnectWise Control than there were in Synchro. And then inside of Synchro, there were multiple systems that my techs onboarded new systems, not understanding that these were repurposed systems from a previous hire. So it all kind of, with your process and the cycle, and I do this because of the cycle, but the whole problem, the point of that is, you got to get your process in place, or automation is, again, garbage in, garbage out.
Right. So I think it starts, again, like you say, it starts with a good process, which goes back to a whole documentation thing about just having processes to do everything, which would make things a lot simpler. And if you're only doing it one way, you run into less chance of making mistakes or duplicating or forgetting steps. So it goes again back to having that process in place. Now,
So I want to stick on the automated billing piece, because I think we've gotten a lot of good information here and we have a lot more to talk about. So we'll probably carry those other two topics we talked about earlier to some other episodes.
okay.
But one of the items that, because I think we're on a good flow here, is, there are services out there that can help you with your automated billing inside of your PSA or your sync, in this case Synchro, but your automated billing on just not only your user count for reconciliation, but also syncing on what you're purchasing as well. So one of this is like, so Synchro integrates with quite a few um software or third-party services, which you can view in their app center. But one of them is being like, if you're a PAX8 partner, you have the ability to import all of your SKUs inside of Synchro. And so not only will that be available to you, now you can automate those pieces. And if the prices go up, you can kind of go through that product. Now, me personally, I have not integrated that piece as of yet. It's on my list, but because I do all inclusive, it's hard for me to kind of figure that piece out to kind of fold it into the bundles, which I think, Rick, that's what you're doing for your billing. So we've talked a couple times on how to figure that piece out. Are you using any thing to, like, of your distributors syncing into your PSA system, or has it kind of just been what you've loaded inside of products, etc.?
It's what I've loaded, and it's only because it's the same reason, because we bundle it, and we can't. I haven't figured out yet, and if anyone who knows the answer to this, they can pass it on to me, and I'll figure it out. We haven't figured out how to get that count into the bundle itself the way we do it. Like, I know that I can make it a line item, so I know that we could take, let's say, for example, if your licensing your Microsoft license comes through PAX8, right, for your user count, you can set that up to count and create a line item on your billing, right? And that'll give you an accurate count of what you're paying for. You'll get a cost for it, what you pay for it, and whatever you charge a client for. That works. But the other side of that is the way we do it, since we only want one line item, I have not figured out how to get that to produce to the bundle,
Oh,
to
I
produce
see.
it to the one line item. Now, I will say this as well. And I've been thinking about just changing one thing, because we charge the customers for their Office 365 subscription just at our cost, not at our cost, but at the price and a little bit over than what Microsoft charges, right? Really, because it's a published pricing, so we don't necessarily bundle it into the user count, right? So and it's for a couple of reasons. There are some users, as you gave me the suggestion, and this is the way we do it now. There are full Microsoft 365 users, and there are some that are just email Microsoft 365 users. So we classify the user that way, which tells us basically how to build them for that, right? And then the Office 365 portion of it just bills as a separate line in our bundle that way. Excuse me. But we haven't figured out how to get that to transfer from PSA into the bundle. So it's a manual process for us. But if we could figure it out, it would save some time as well. And that would also give us that accurate count we're looking for.
So if you are in the MSP community online group, feel free to poke us to let us know how you're syncing the PAX8 into Synchro or your PSA. B, if you are not in the online community group, find someone that is in the community group so they can invite you so that they can poke us so we can see what's going on. And if at all it fails, you can email us at info@mspunplugged.com because me and Rick are super interested on trying to get this figured out.
Right.
But again, those are one of the services that I'm aware of that integrates right into Synchro that's been advertised. I'm not sure if any other distributor does right now. However, and for full disclosure, I am on this company's partner advisory council. But Gradient has actually been really helpful for us. Because they're kind of fitting that, how do I say? They're filling that kind of like that middleman, that plug that we need to help with the reconciliation of billing. So we have quite a few partners that integrate inside of Gradient that will allow us to update our billing. And that's what my office coordinator uses almost on a daily to monthly basis to try and figure out the reconciliation. And if you've heard my story before, and I think even Gradient may have done this a couple times then where they quoted me, where I've actually recovered close to $3,000 that I lost in the previous 3 months that made me be able to do things faster than I was able to do. And that was just because of due to really messed up billing where we had bad user counts. We had the pricing of the SKUs were wrong. I mean, everything under the sun. And it just, I was so mad when I saw this and heads rolled, but I would have never known. Like, I've always had the hunch that we weren't really billing how we should have been, but I never had proof until I actually logged into the system and it beautifully, it showed me how I can do that. And I was ready to, again, heads rolled, but because that's a lot of money. So for me, you can always rely on that. And I believe Gradient is free for their first tier. If you want some of the automated stuff, you do got to pay a monthly fee for that. But that has helped us tremendously on syncing a lot of those SKUs over. I don't know if you use Gradient or not, Rick, but
I use the free tier.
Okay. And so just in general, again, they have multiple vendors, and I'm trying to pull it up here to see who is it. So right now they integrate with Autotask, Kaseya, Synchro, Pulseway, and Halo PSA. They also are integrated in their synthesized product line, which is kind of what we call to dump everything in. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. They integrate with ConnectWise Manage, Autotask, Kaseya, Synchro, Pulseway, Halo PSA, Excello, Tiger Paw, and Blue PSA, Cloud Blue PSA. And there are a much more. So those are the PSAs that they have going on right now. And then I'm trying to pull up the actual partners that actually integrate with them right now. So they actually have quite a few that help with their billing reconciliation. And of course, Gradient's not paying us for this. So I'm just, because I love the guys and I'm just giving them some ups on them. But right now they integrate with to help control. Again, this is billing reconciliation. We're still on PSA. You can integrate your Adigy account, Augment, Auvik, Axient, Blackpoint, Breach Secure Now, Comet Backup, Chrisma, Domotes, Enclave, Onturi, Huntress, Inky, Keeper, Mesh, Mail Protector, Nerdio, Nodeware, Fin, Power DMark, QuickPass, Safe DNS, Sock Solder, Solutions Granted, Traintware, and Zorus. So these are the vendors that they have so far. We do have, I shouldn't say we, they have a lot more that are coming on as well to help with your billing reconciliations. And again, the goal for this is that you integrate your counts inside the system and then you do your one-to-one mappings, which will then help update on your side of what you're billing for as well. So if you have that reconciliation, how that's set up, I would definitely take a look at Gradient as well as a third-party software to help with your updates. And that's what we personally use inside of our PSA for Synchro.
Sounds good. Seems like I was just looking, and I didn't realize it did so many. And basically all of these products, all the products that I use. So that is actually a good option for it as well. We're gonna have a episode at some point on tools you buy, what's worth it and what's not, and not necessarily what we recommend you should have, but we always run into that tools overload scenario where you look, when you audit, you realize you're paying for so many things you don't need. Or you're paying for things that you're not using. That's probably a better way to look at it. And I've been guilty of that, Paco. But you and I have had some good conversations on that. And I only bring that up to say this: if you're using, as Paco just gave that list, it just rang a bell in my head. It's like, I'm using a lot of these things, and Gradient is maybe that, for me, maybe that piece that brings all those together to make sure I'm billing correctly, which is a good idea. But again, it's always that age-old question: do I take on a new tool with a new expense? Is that really a cost worth it to me? And this is not necessarily about Gradient, but it's a cost. It's a general question you always have to ask for business.
No, I mean, it's funny you say that because we literally talked about that on so for everyone that knows, we have a content committee meeting. Is that right? Why does it sound weird?
Content
anyway,
committee.
So that it didn't flow for some reason. But yeah, we have a content committee meeting for TechCon Unplugged, where we group several solution providers of different sizes to talk about what should be the content coming up from the feedback that we receive. And that was actually one of the big discussions we had yesterday: is how do you deal with the overall tool sprawl? Like, how do you deal with understanding that you don't want to put any more vendors in your stuff because now you get distracted on so many that are out there, but then, you don't want to leave a tool off the table because it may help you faster. And we kind of ran into some discussions. Like, one of the content committee members said that, we have something that's every year. So like, we do it every August. Every August is when we look at tools, we'll consider them, and that's it. We don't move for a year. And I started to implement something like that because we previously were using Cronus before. We decided to move off into another product set to what we wanted to do. And so that allowed us to focus and really figure out, what do we want to research? But I stuck with them for the 12 months. I tried to figure it out. It just wasn't for us. And so we decided to move forward with something else. So that's kind of where, for us. But then again, there may be something that comes, like, perfect example, like this PSA automation that's coming out and making its way around, which we will have several vendors come on. So these are vendors like PIA, MSP Bots, Roost. There are a lot of these companies that are trying to help automate level 1 technician type things, even down to where I believe we were just talking to Nick earlier, or later we'll talk to, that published this Thursday. And I even heard on Carl Palachek's SMB podcast, where like people are really trying to figure out how to get Chat GPT to be a smart chat bot versus it being a series of questions to actually help you on one question solve things. So, so that's something that really interests me. But I don't got the time, nor I got to figure out where the resources to dedicate to something like that, right? So again, there's that heavy balance, like you just mentioned, Rick, and it's definitely a symptom that a lot of people have, where you can't always go for the shiny new object syndrome, right? Because that is something that bit me a long time ago, where I was practically at the time had almost thousands of dollars of services without the clients coming in, because I said, oh, if I have the tools, the clients will come, and it doesn't work that way. And if anyone tells you that, that's BS. There is no way that happens. So you cannot dump everything and hope that the customer, you have to have the clients, and then you build yourself accordingly. That's what my philosophy is. And that's what has helped me with that service. So if you're paying, $200 a month for a website, you know, my suggestion to you is really to understand, do you really need $200 for that website, or do you want to go ahead and lower it down a little bit and head over to Tech Marketing Engine to go ahead and have them take care of your website for the low price of $19 a month? But anyway, that's my shameless plug because that's my buddy, but that's what I'm saying for that.
But it's that balance and that understanding. This is the thing. Tools are just that, tools. They're not necessarily solutions. They are tools to help you solve issues within your business. And then you have to know again, because a lot of times if you think about this, and the medical industry is, well, the drug industry is famous for this. They create issues that you don't necessarily have until they tell you you have it, right? So, you know what I'm saying? Restless leg syndrome, irritable bowel, all these things that come up,
Yeah.
There's a drug for it. I never knew it existed. Oh, I didn't know I had that. Yeah, I do have that. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing. And this is not to put down any of our this is not to say, first of all, that none of those things don't exist, but I'm just saying. And this is not to put down any of our vendors in the community, but a lot of times tools are built to solve problems that you didn't necessarily know you had. And then all of a sudden now it becomes this major problem. So one of the things I learned from you, Paco, is be very disciplined about what you add to the business. Forget the fact that, yes, it's going to cost you money. A tool will cost you anywhere from, $30 to $300 or more per month. So you think about that cost, but that is the last part about it. Think about the time, the energy, the effort it takes to implement that tool. And then does it really help you? Now we've created and I'm just going to tell a quick story that really got me understanding, where I should be and shouldn't be with the tool situation. You and I had this conversation about, yeah, you don't need that. You don't need that. And I said, yes, I do. I need it for this. I need it for that. When I'm explaining to Latrice, when we're having this conversation about how things work and where you get information from, I'm saying, okay, you go here to get this, you go here to get that, you go here. And she's like, you got so many things to get so many things, right? And it's like, we have to figure out about, first of all, consolidation, because whether a tool does exactly what you need to do or not, you only can manage with so many, right?
Right.
Again, it goes back to automation. We can bring that right back into it. But, and this is not a tools discussion, so I don't want to linger on this point, but just be careful that you do not overdo it. And a lot of times, I bet you there's everyone at the sound of my voice can either think of they've been through this experience, or they're going through the experience where they've purchased a tool, they're paying for it each month, and they're not using it.
Right.
And I think at some point you need to do an inventory cleaning. And if you haven't used a product in 3 months and you're paying for it, you're not going to use it.
No.
Chances are you're
No
not
matter what your
use it.
admin says for you to spend.
Exactly. Exactly. You're not going to use it. So if it hasn't been implemented and no one's taking the time to learn it and do it, you're not going to use it. So you might as well drop that tool if you can. That's why 1-year contracts or yearly contracts, for that reason, is a bad idea. But anyway, I don't want to harp on that. Back to automated billing.
No, I mean, I think we talked quite a bit about it today. We were hoping to kind of knock out a couple, but I think this was just an important topic to really talk about. Is, again, I think automated billing, especially, I think that was a big topic that Sinker was talking about on their Ask Me Anything and such. But I think specifically for those that are trying to figure out how to get consistent and predictable cash flow, this is a great way for you to figure that out. We didn't even dive into, working with your processors, reaching out to them to talk about, hey, can we cut the lead time from, 3 days? Is there a way to do overnight? How much do we got to figure out for that? So there are a lot of things that you can do to help automate and build out that predictable cash flow, which maybe we'll do another show for that. But I think we've kind of talked quite a bit about the topic. I think we can round out the show here. And my last and final thoughts on that would just simply say, if you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, and getting new clients is not always the answer. I think reducing cost and really trying to figure out how to get your cash flow going, because you could be making good money, you just don't have the time, or the timing is just not in your favor. So by doing this and kind of restructuring some things may help you out in the long run. So stay vigilant, keep going. I think that's a big a piece of this that we've talked about that could help your business kind of thrive a lot sooner rather than later.
Yeah, great point. I think it goes back to the conversation we had, I think it was last week, about making sure internally you're good first before you start worrying about getting external. So if you can, get the billing right, make sure you have a process correct for doing this stuff now and automate it, that helps you as you grow because it takes some things off your plate. So
Yep.
I think that's an excellent point. So I think if nothing else, Mr. Paco, I think we'll wrap it up here. I think we've talked enough on this subject. Any final words?
Nope. Those are my final thoughts.
He did say that. I'm sorry about that. I do have one final reminder as we start the show is the way we're going to end it. Remember that TechCon Unplugged is September 7th to the 10th in Woodbridge, New Jersey. Yeah, see the banner scrolling down on the bottom. So go to techconunplugged.com to get your tickets, get information. If you have any questions that is not addressed on the website, please feel free to give us drop us an email, info@techconunplugged.com. And we also are taking any suggestions that you think that you could help the event. So please drop us a line. Just let us know if you have any thoughts or feelings about the stuff, and we definitely will take it to the content committee if it's a content issue, or we'll take it to the planning committee and make sure we can see about making sure that the planning is done a lot better so that we can make everyone comfortable, happy, and have a very successful show. So go to techconunplugged.com to get your tickets. Now, for Paco and I, we want to thank you. We remind you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. The shows are released. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSPUnplugged.com. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. If you believe Paco has that face for radio, because I know I'm beautiful here, you could take us on the go with your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a few more. So for Paco and I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.